It's time to talk about the mid game.
Shoot him, Kevin!
Hello everybody, I'm Roadblock and this is a Raid Shadow Legends video. So today we're going to kind of talk about the mid game. I think I want to give a quick disclaimer with kind of all my videos. These are my opinions. This is just what I would do, how I approach it, and my thoughts on the matter. You may have different thoughts. There may be content creators with different thoughts. That's totally fine. I don't think there's like a perfect way to play Raid Shadow Legends. I really don't. Like because it's a video game and it's about your personal enjoyment, you may not want to pursue the routes that I'm indicating here in this video. But the points that I really want to get across are the concepts and the ideas of what you should be working towards for bettering your account. It may not be your main focus, but it might be the area where you really want to improve and strengthen your account. So this is just me saying, hey, these are what I did to get out of the mid game, or to get into the mid game, and you know, kind of what I'm doing forward. So we're actually over on my main free-to-play account. I would call my main free-to-play a mid-game account. I think even I've had guests on the channel that have even referred to it as a mid-game account. Stop right there. Click the link in the description right now to get a free legendary Elenaril and 3 free amazing epics as you level up. Here are the exact steps that you need to follow. Step 1, log out of Plarium Play on PC and uninstall. Step 2, click the link in the description and register with a brand new email. Step 3, launch Raid and complete the tutorial. Step 4, go to your inbox and claim your first champ. Here we go. You'll find Elenaril here, as well as Uugo at level 10, Tagoar at level 20, and Rector Drath at 30. Don't forget to use the promo code Supreme6 to get yourself the awesome Supreme Galek. This is an amazing account start in Raid. So click on my link right now and follow the steps. Now, this account's about 1.5 years. I would say the biggest reason it's a mid-game account is because I lack a very, very good support. Unfortunately, to get like good support level play, I need to bring like 2, sometimes even 3 champions to do everything that a good support might do, just based on my roster. So when I say good support, I'm talking like a Duchess, Elva, Python. There's a lot of other ones in there. I'm not trying to dismiss anybody that I didn't mention. I'm just thinking of a few names off the top of my head that can check off a lot of boxes. You know, block debuffs, speed, aura, healing, cleansing, full reviving, you know, whatever the case may be, right? So I really lack that on this account in particular, and that's been holding up this account quite a bit from really pushing that far into the end game, where you might want a better support to, you know, when you think about Hydra, right, which is a big kind of part of the mid game, I would say, you've really got these team combinations where you've got 6 slots and you're trying to fit in everything. A provoker, right? A block buffs, right? You're trying to fit in hex, burns, maybe decrease attack, decrease defense, weaken. Like, you're trying to fit all these things into one team. Maybe you're able to get a Hexer and a Provoker in one champion, like an Archer Queen that I have on my main account. That frees up a lot more slots for you to bring in other champions, right? So that's kind of what I mean by that. I would say the mid game is all about kind of figuring out your strengths and weaknesses on your account. So my strengths on my account are really good freaking champions, right? I've got good damage dealers, both PvP and PvE. I have good boss nukers, right, on this account. But I'm not trying to brag about the account. I'm just, you know, identifying what's good on my account. Again, good PvP champions, right? And so you kind of find like good provokers and things like that, right? So you try to find your strengths and your weaknesses, and you play to those strengths and weaknesses. This is where you're going to start to refine your teams. You're going to try and really figure out what works best for your roster and completing certain areas of the game. Now, I feel like I'm constantly plugging this team, and I'm not trying to plug it because I've made a video on it. Just straight up, I love this team. I would recommend, if you're in the mid game, building this team. I see a lot of players, even in my own clan, players that are in my Discord that are asking me, you know, this is a really easy to build team for any single account. build this. This is an all rare team. I've made a video on it. You guys can check that out. But it will really, really help you advance. For Sand Devil, unfortunately, Godseeker is kind of the meta for that. I mean, I have a community member that, that's been talking to me on Discord and asking for help. And it's like, man, I would love to give you help, but I'm spoiled, dude. Like, I've been running this team for forever. I don't even remember how long ago I started running this team. So it's really hard for me to comment on any team outside of Godseeker. If you don't have Godseeker, it can be pretty hard. I would like to believe that any 3-turn, which maybe not 3-turn, 3-turn Revive on Death. I have to assume there's a way to make that work, but I truly don't know. I don't know the speeds for it, but my recommendation there would be using the optimizer to try and figure out what speeds and what comp you need to make that work. But theoretically, a boss killer and a Revive on Death that is fast enough to get that cooldown up, which is hard to do, should theoretically work. But I don't know for sure. I've never had to build a team like that. I'm a little spoiled. Sorry, guys. But yeah, you're gonna want to figure out your teams and start pushing into the other areas of the game. I would say you're probably looking at hard dungeons in the mid game, but the early stages, and that's okay. It's okay to be in the early stages of the hard dungeons. I don't think you need to stray too far from those. Whatever feels comfortable for you, but I think hard dungeons are good because you have an opportunity to get a very good piece of gear while also getting points for events and tournaments, right? Keep in mind that technically speaking, you do still get more points from normal and doing stage 20. I think you get more points per energy overall that way. If efficiency matters to you, stage 20 is probably the better place to spend your energy in that regard, because you're probably going to gain more points per energy by running on those stages of normal. But I personally preferred to run on hard. I will also wanted to note that some hard dungeons, in my opinion, are actually easier than their normal versions. And the reason that I say that, Spider comes to mind immediately for that, because your nukers can now do boss level damage. Granted, this team does have, 2 enemy max HP hitters in it. When you have the capability, especially with Hex, when you have the capability to constantly clear those spiderlings, you can basically I wouldn't pick Thor to do a lot of damage to Dragon. Right? He'll do damage to the waves, but when you get to the boss, he's not going to be doing as much damage as an enemy max HP or a poisoner in that particular version, right? Of hard. On Spider, a whole bunch of spiderlings pop up and Thor goes zoom, 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 and, takes them all out. Now you've done not only made the fight easier for you, but you've also done a ton of damage to the boss. So I really like that, especially if you went Wukong early on, you've got some pretty good AoE nukers that can probably take care of the spiderlings for you, and you just need maybe a little bit of support to get you through the rest of the fight. So I tend to find Spider to be a little bit easier on hard. There's a small argument that could be made for Dragon. However, the waves are still going to be a problem. But if you can bring some poisons and maybe even poison activation, depending on what champions you had early on, you might see some really big payoff out of their performance in hard. I will point out that hard Dragon saw the most progression in the free-to-play challenge early game. So we had a lot of people that got into hard Dragon very quickly within the first month, I would say. I didn't talk about keeps or anything yesterday, but that you should have that solved by now. You should have those solved pretty quickly, to be honest with you. They're pretty easy. It's just mostly about affinities, and as long as you understand the fights, maybe bring in some type of anti-healing on the Spirit Keep, right? A buff stealing on Magic Keep, and Force and Void have been pretty easy for me in the past once you get some more champions that are affinity friendly there. This is where I would start to make a bigger priority out of Iron Twins. I personally sleep on Iron Twins early game because of the energy commitment. In the early game, I would rather be spending my energy and my resources leveling food for new pulls that I might get. But once you get in the mid game, energy becomes a little more readily available. Maybe you're, instead of leveling a new champion every couple of days. You're leveling one every couple of weeks. You're waiting for those 2x pulls and getting something good. You're waiting for those fusions that you're going to get and level up. I know that a lot of people don't like Iron Twins. I know that there is a big chunk of the community who don't do it. They don't farm it. I don't mind doing my 6 keys. I won't buy the second set of keys. And if you don't know, you can actually buy 6 more keys for 150 gems. Maybe to complete a mission for Marius. Again, if you are struggling and can't really get past some of the lower stages and kind of get into here where you're getting better resources like stage 11 beyond, maybe you don't want to spend. That's up to you and what you feel is best for your account. 2 years ago, well, I don't want to put an exact time on it, but before it got nerfed, Iron Twins was pretty challenging. It's a lot easier now. I think you can, with a decent enough team. I mean, you can look, this is really what I'm rocking. These are great champions. I'm not saying that they're bad, but I've just got a Godseeker, Newt, Odin. Honestly, I don't even really know why he's in there, to be real with you. I think just because I think he hits a little bit harder than any of my other champions on the roster, to be honest with you. Yeah, teams works fine, so I think it's pretty easy. I think you should be able to do it. Tinker around with it, play around with it a little bit. It can be expensive because of the energy cost, but try out some teams. I highly recommend it. I think people, I understand the arguments for not wanting to do that, but I do think these coins come in pretty handy, especially if you're free to play, because you really don't have that many other ways of getting a large quantity of Mortal Soul Stones, right? So now let's go ahead and talk about Arena. Now, I should have mentioned this in my video yesterday. I think you should be doing live Arena from the jump. If you guys watched the free-to-play challenge series, you would have seen that in live Arena, I was winning consistently on the free-to-play challenge. And I was able, every day, I was able to get my 5 wins. Sometimes it cost me a little bit of gems to do it, but I was able to get my 5 wins every single day. And that can add up to primal shards, that can add up to gear, and even a legendary book. I know people say this doesn't exist, but look at that right there. My free-to-play got it the other day. So those legendary books do exist, guys. Tag Team Arena, I would ramp up your focus a little bit here if you could. You can see on this mid-game account, I am in silver. This does come in quite handy. The main thing that I tend to buy, I basically just buy a Void Shard from in here. I wouldn't buy the epic skill tomes. You're going to get enough of these, and in fact, I don't need any more epic tomes on this account at all. Yeah, do your battles. I just do my 10 battles a day. I don't do the reset. I'm not sitting there doing 20, and me personally, I'm not putting a lot of thought or my energy into this. I'm not putting mental energy into this, right? I just run my battles, and if I lose, I lose. If I win, I win. Now, that is not an official recommendation. That is what I do, because again, how you play your account is how you play your account. If you want to be hyper focused on Tag Team Arena, go for it. Do it up. There's no wrong. There's nothing hurtful that's going to come from that. It's only going to help your account. Faction Wars, you should start getting to more points, where you've got 63 stars. Maybe you kind of had to cheese some of the fights, right? You can see this is a 2-minute run with a level 15, so I'm probably doing some ways to really keep this guy alive as much as possible, or you're just bringing a reviver and this guy is just there to check off that 5th slot, right? And you just basically get the boss down right about to die, revive your team, kill the boss, and there you go, right? So sometimes you got to cheese them, but Faction Wars, you should be progressing here. One thing I would say is be very careful about 6-starring champions only for Faction Wars. You might get to a point where you need it. However, I would say that it's okay to keep some champions at 50, maybe put some of your below average or average gear on them, just for progression. It makes it a lot easier if you can bring a reviver as well, maybe even a rare reviver that you could put in like a bolster or a regen or something just to keep them alive. That way you can get those 5 stars. But me personally, I'm kind of going about it in a one faction at a time approach. This is just how I'm doing it. I've never put enough thought into Faction Wars to make like a guide on it. In fact, I think Ash just came out with a guide on Faction Wars, so I would check that out on his channel. I watched a large amount of that because I'm pushing Faction Wars right now, right? But you can get away often enough with level 50s. But in other, like for Demon Spawn, I recently had to build a few champions that I may not normally build just to try and make some progression there. And it has vastly paid off. You saw a lot of points there. So I built Tyrant and Drexstar for Faction Wars. And they're carrying me through that. My biggest problem right now is I just don't have any gear on Scorid. Once I put gear on Scorid and he can survive, then I'll be able to max out all the stars. The rewards in here are very, very good. You know, you're going to get books, you're going to get shards, even sacreds in there, right? A lot of sacreds in there. So you want to make sure that you're doing Faction Wars and trying to get the rewards as you can get them. Also getting glyphs, which are going to be huge, and getting your stuff to craft better gear that we talked about in the last video. The biggest area that you're going to want to be pushing is Hydra and Chimera. Now, Hydra, I know that Chimera came out after Hydra, but if I'm not mistaken, and feel free to let me know in the comments, but I read somewhere, or maybe heard a content creator say it, that they considered Chimera to be kind of like the second boss, right? So Demon Lord, easiest, Chimera, second hardest, and then the hardest boss would be Hydra. So this account can do brutal if I manual it and if things go right, but I still struggle in brutal. So I kind of tend to stick with hard and normal right now. I would love to have 3 teams put together. I would recommend not doing what I'm doing. I would recommend trying to optimize your Hydra teams as best you can, if only for the accessories. Because I think one of the biggest things you can do to really help you out into the end game is going to be stone skin and protection gear. Protection gear in PvE has seen a large increase. If I go over to the main account, you're going to see 9-piece protection sets on a lot of my supports here. And the reason for that is for the 9-piece bonus. Sure, my buffs are protected. That helps me in a lot of areas. But allies dealing 5% more damage for each buff placed by the wearer from all of these supports that are giving me a lot of stats or a lot of buffs is really helpful. And for them to be protected is great. And the set by itself just gives you a ton of speed, right? It's got built-in speed into it. You've got 12% here, 12% here, and then another 8% on the 8-piece. So, and you're probably running these with speed anyways, right? You're probably looking for speed and HP, speed resistance, maybe in some cases some accuracy, but yeah, I mean, a lot of my champions on my, what I consider an endgame account, again, people different opinions, are in the 9-piece protection. The hardest part about 9-piece protection is the accessories. So do what you can to try and get into some clash numbers. Now, theoretically, if the balance is right, you're hopefully going to run into a couple of Hydra clash wins. When you're doing that, you know, you're going to get these chests, which are going to give you the accessories. And you're going to get, you know, even at this 35 million points, that adds up pretty quickly over a couple of weeks, right? Over the course of a month, you've got, what would that be, 48 accessories? They may not land in the spots that you want for the factions that you want, but you can see, like, I've been able to build up a pretty decent number of 9-piece protection. Granted, I'm doing 650 million plus, so I'm getting 9, but that's not that much difference, right? So you want to make sure that you're optimizing what you can in this regard, and obviously working towards these down here. If we go back to my challenge account, you can see challenge account struggles on clan boss. I try to hit the 35 million mark. I can do that pretty consistently, but getting down here and going up into the 1.2 billion range, I'm not there yet. I'm still struggling to get to that point. So, you know, that's okay, right? This is nice, but it's going to take some time to get through it, but this is what you're looking for. If you're consistently putting up 35 or even 140 million into the mid game, yet you're losing every single Hydra clash every week, again, grain of salt, play how you want, But if you're not like super committed to your clan, if you're kind of just an outsider and you're not like making friends and building relationships, I've got friends and relationships in my clan. I'm not going anywhere, regardless of what happens. If we lost every Hydra Clash from here on out, I ain't leaving. I mean, it's my clan, but still. But my point that I'm trying to make is that you might want to consider advancing clans. It's very common for players to get into the mid game and start to get past the level that their clan is in. Yeah, it just flat out happens. In my particular case, I got into the mid game and passed my clan, but then I started this channel and started coaching people up in my clan to get better and start progressing with me, right? So kind of keep that in mind as stuff that you can do to give yourself better chances, right? Better results, and get that protection gear, because that is really, really going to come in handy and help your supports not only help you deliver more damage, but protecting their buffs, giving them really good high speed. Mikage on the main account in 9-piece protection, 347 speed, and that's, you know, yes, there's speed on every piece, but I don't know that it's anything too crazy, right? Just two rolls on each. Yeah, literally, it's just a double roll on every single piece, and obviously the ascension on the boots, right? And all of that equals 347 when you have a base speed of 115. So this is a great set. I think people sleep on it, and I highly recommend prioritizing getting that set when you're in the mid game. Let me know in the comments if there's something in the mid game that you guys feel like I didn't talk about today, and I'll make a part 2 about the mid game specifically. If I don't get a lot of comments about it, if there aren't questions about how I should approach X, Y, and Z in the mid game, then I'll go ahead and move on to the end game and talk about really kind of what to hone in on the end game and where to go from there. So I'm just gonna keep the outro short because we are short on time here. So I just want to say thank you guys for watching. If you're new here, please consider subscribing. The best way to support the channel. And I look forward to seeing you all in the next video. Take care.